This is part 8 of going through the president's cabinet, and I really should be more ahead of this series, but every time I start researching something, I go down 10 different rabbit holes. So we are going to go over the Secretary of Commerce. We're going to go through some history, what that person does, and Trump just released his pick for that role yesterday, so we'll go through that person. But if you're like, Anna, what rabbit hole did you go down now? Just wait. Here is a little bit of history. The department was formed in 1903. It actually started as the Department of Commerce and Labor. Now those two departments are separated, and they were separated in 1913. And ideally, it's supposed to promote the general welfare, since that is one of the greatest goals of government. Like every department, there are so many bureaus underneath it. We have the U.S. Census Bureau, Economic Development Administration, International Trade, which will come in handy in a little bit, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and we have the NTIA that deals with telecommunications. And that made me wonder, I'm like, isn't that what the FCC is for? So I asked ChatGPT, like, what is the difference? And you would think that the FCC would be under the Department of Commerce, but it's not. It is separate. The Department of Commerce manages federal use of radio spectrum, while the FCC oversees commercial and non-federal spectrum use. It just seems like it should all be under one office, one department. But what do I know? The department's current goal is to improve America's economic competitiveness. As you learn more about this department, it really just comes down to economic growth, economic vitality. Which leads me to another rabbit hole I went down of. The SBA, the Small Business Administration, is not part of this department. According to the SBA, over 60% of all net new jobs have been created by small businesses. I believe that number is actually a lot higher. I think that they leave out very important data. Regardless, though, when you're talking about a department that is all about economic vitality, how are small businesses separated from that? They really do go hand in hand. Okay, I'm done ranting for now. Now let's go on to who the current Secretary of Commerce is. It's Gina Raimondo. I feel like I have to say it with the accent. I know she's Italian. I don't know if that's an Italian last name. I'm assuming it is. Now, Gina got her law degree before she went to work for a venture capital firm. Eventually, she started her own firm. After that, she was the treasurer of Rhode Island and became the governor of Rhode Island, and that brings us to today. Now, a lot of what I read about her is really about these 4 pieces of legislation: the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act. And just think about this. Going back to the whole mission of the entire department, it's economic vitality, job growth. Do you believe that these things have done that? Let's just take the CHIPS Act as an example. They gave Intel $8.5 billion in grants to make semiconductors. Intel in their last fiscal year made $18 billion in pure profit. So are we better off as a country giving our tax dollars to this company to make semiconductors? I'll let you answer that. Now let's move on to who Trump picked for his Commerce Secretary. He picked Wall Street investor Howard Lutnick. Lutnick joined Cantor Fitzgerald in 1983, rose rapidly through the ranks, and became CEO in 1991. And the company is one of the world's leading financial services firms. The company was unfortunately headquartered in the Twin Towers when 9/11 happened, and they lost over 60% of their staff. And he did lose his brother as well. He quickly created a fund to give to the 9/11 families. Apart from his career, he is a big donor for Donald Trump, but not only that, he has also fundraised for him as well. More recently, he has actually been on Trump's transition team. Now, as we know, Trump campaigned very heavily on tariffs, and Lutnick is a very big supporter of them. So here's a clip where he kind of explains his views.
And of course, it's a bargaining chip. We can't sell a Ford or GM in Europe. You go to Europe, you can't sell a Ford or GM. Why? There's 100% tariffs. How about in Japan? 100% tariffs. So do you think if we said, we're going to tariff you the way you tariff us, do you think they're going to allow Mercedes and all these Japanese companies and Porsches and BMWs to all of a sudden have 100% tariffs in America? Of course not. They're going to come and negotiate, and their tariffs are going to come down. And finally, Ford and General Motors are going to be able to sell in these places.
How's that sound, Andrew? That sounds...
Of course they're going to come down. Of course. This is just negotiating.
It absolutely makes sense. If you do it strategically, if it's across the board, it creates a real problem. And the question is whether you believe the president is going to do it strategically or across the board. He keeps saying it across the board.
Well, when you're running for office, you make broad statements so people understand you.
Right.
Okay? Tariffs are an amazing tool by the president to use. They're an amazing tool, but he understands don't tariff stuff we don't make. Right? If we don't make it and you want to buy it, I don't want to put the price up. It's pointless, but use tariffs to build in America. If we want to make it in America, tariff it, or if we're competing with it, tariff it. But you got to remember, we need to protect the American worker. Finally, someone's going to protect the American worker, and Donald Trump is here to protect the American worker.
I honestly thought that that was the best explanation of tariffs yet, but of course, let me know your thoughts about that. I also want to hear your thoughts about, maybe rearranging some of these departments. As I learn more and you learn more with me, it just seems like we need to rearrange, all of these departments a little bit. There's too many things that are in weird spots. But let me know your thoughts. I'm open to learning as much as you are. And of course, make sure you're following me for more.